Hello, my name is Anmarie, and in this video we're actually going to be talking about human tissues found in the human body. So, before I even show you all this, I wanted to talk quickly about what they are. So, tissues are what make up organs, and they are composed of cells, and they're composed of cells that actually work together to perform a specific function. And so there are four primary tissue classes. Each one has a different characteristic, and they have different functions, and they're found in different areas of the body. So there's epithelial, connective, nervous, and muscular. So I'm going to spend a lot more time on epithelial and connective. But here I drew some diagrams for you of all of them, though. But we're going to spend a little bit more time on epithelial and connective. So if you see up here, this is epithelial. And so epi means top, and they're typically cells that are super close together. They are also found on the upper surface of organs and stuff like that. So it's actually the top of our skin, or at least just in our skin. And it's typically exposed to the environment, which is our skin. So it covers the surface and lines body cavities, and it forms external and internal linings for many organs. So they can actually be found in the digestive tract and in the liver and in some glands. We know that because of their functions. So their functions include protection. It's protection for the deeper tissue from invasion. It's a barrier for infection, if you will. And in the stomach, actually, the inner lining of the stomach protects the deeper tissues of the stomach, or protects the deeper issues from the stomach acid. So it actually secretes mucus and sweat and enzymes and hormones. So that's where the glands are from. The glands are composed of this type of epithelial tissue, and so it absorbs chemicals as well. And so nutrients, for example, are absorbed through the epithelium in the small intestines. And they even filter, and another function that they do is filter substances that are leaving the blood. So it's in the urinary waste is filtered through the epithelia of the kidneys. And so it also has nerve endings, which give a sensation, and even stimulate it. So it stimulates the touch on the skin, or even irritation in the stomach. So there are a few different things that I wanted to show you about epithelium tissue. And so first up here we see that there's different types of shape. And so right here we have cuboidal and squamous and columnar. So cuboidal you can kind of remember because it looks like a cube. Squamous, so this is as if this is flat. So squamous is typically flat, is flat, and then columnar. Columnar, they're just basically giant columns. So it's like cuboidal, but not, because they're longer. And then there's different types of classes of epithelia tissue. So this right here is actually simple. So this would be simple epithelia. And then this is right here stratified, which means many layers. And then this is actually called pseudostratified, which makes it look like it has many layers, but it's not. And so what I use to separate, or I guess differentiate that bit, or differentiate pseudo from everything else, because I personally had a lot of issues with that, is that typically there's a little hairs on top of that. And that's called the cilia. So that's very fun. But anyway, so the way that you would label an epithelia tissue is like simple cuboidal. So like this is that, or stratified cuboidal, or pseudostratified columnar right here. And so, yeah, so you could also do simple squamous, where it's just like a bunch of different, or simple columnar, or stratified cuboidal, stratified squamous, and on and on. So yeah, so that is the epithelial tissue. The next one that we're going to go over is actually the connective tissue. So before I continue with that, connective tissue is actually our most abundant tissue, and it's widely distributed throughout our body. Usually, they're loose, with more room in between and like more fluid in between, but they come in a wide variety of shapes and sizes and stuff. So the functions, it includes like, it binds muscles and bones. So like examples is tendons and ligaments. So tendons do muscle to bone, ligaments bone to bone. And it's also it's also like fat, like, the kidneys and the eyes are held in place by the fat. And then it also provides support. So connective tissue is actually bones. Our bones are made of connective tissues, and so without bones, we wouldn't have support. And cartilage is also a connective tissue, so which supports the ears, and it helps support our bones as well. So there's also like the physical protection, like, the ribs in our body. It protects our thoracic cavity. It protects the vital organs in there. Without the ribs, our vital organs, like our heart, our lungs, would be so much more exposed. And yeah, and so that also provides like immunity protection, protection on the inside, not just the outside. So it's like connective tissues attack invaders such as bacteria. So the epithelia is a barrier to the bacteria, or a barrier to infection. However, the connective is actually more of a fighter. So then they also have storage. Like I said, fat is a connective tissue, and it holds in our eyes. Fat is actually the main energy storage system in our body, and so, like I said, that bones are also considered a connective tissue. Bones store calcium and phosphate. Connective tissues also help with heat production. Fat generates heat. So, transportation, the bloodstream. So, blood is made in the bone marrow, and so, which the blood stream is like the highway system of the body. And also blood is actually considered a connective tissue as well. It transport gases and nutrients, waste, even, and then hormones, and especially our blood cells. So there are different types of connective tissue. So we'll go over loose first. So loose is kind of exactly what it sounds like. So there's loose, and then there's different forms of loose. There's areolar, which looks like different fibers, and just like very straight lines, basically, with a lot of fluid in between, or a lot of movement in between. And this is reticular. And so these each have like a nucleus inside of them, but it's a little bit more it's like a little bit more like fibrous rather than branches, and then of course there's also adipose right here. Adipose. Adipose, this is right here. And then there's different cartilages. There's different types of cartilages. I'm going to switch this over to this side. So this is called hyaline. Hyaline kind of like looks more like blood cells. So blood cells are over here. Like I said, it's a connective tissue. And then there's also elastic. Elastic cartilage is actually what's found in our ears. And then this is fibro. It has like different cell shapes and stuff in the middle of it. And then this is our bone. Our bones is consisted of, like, this whole thing right here is called an osteon. And then the little dots around that form like a circle, that like an onion shaped, that is called the lacunae. And then in the center there is actually the central canal. That's where our veins are. And that's veins, blood vessels, and nerves are right in there. So yeah, that is connective tissue. Next, we're going to talk about nervous tissue. Oh, no. I'm so sorry. I almost missed dense. I'm so sorry. So dense is right down here. Dense is the exact opposite of loose connective. So if you see here, like for example, this is dense. These two are dense, like because they just have very little room in between. Just picture these more like just basically without like the white part in between, and that is basically dense. So there's two different forms of dense. There's dense regular, which forms like a pattern, and then there's dense irregular, which you can see it's just like all over the place and it's all swirly, so there's no pattern. So dense regular, dense irregular. And then now we're going to talk about nervous tissue. And so the nervous tissue is composed of neurons and neuroglia, I believe, and it's meant to help protect the nerve cells, and they communicate chemical and electrical glands too as well. Nervous and actually muscular are both labeled as an excitable tissue due to their electrical charge difference. It occurs in all cells basically in the membrane. The excitability in nervous tissue, though, results in the rapid transmission of the signals to other cells. So nervous tissue is actually, so this kind of reminds me of like when we touch something hot and like, you know, our neurons run up to our spinal cord or run down our arm or down our finger, up our arm, up the spinal column and into the brain, and then back and back just in time for us to say ow and like, you know, pull away. So it's like that, like, you know, that little jog. And so like that. So it is found in the brain and in the spinal cord as well as nerves. So yeah. And then now muscular tissue. The muscular tissue is, I mean, kind of exactly what it sounds like. It's like, you know, specialized to contract when stimulated and exert, so contract and retract. A force that it, like, you know, on other tissues, like, you know, or organs or fluids. So example, like the heart contracts and exerts blood, and it retracts, and then it contracts. So it's just like to be able to force out blood and then create this blood flow and bloodstream in the body. Movement across the body depends on muscles. So we say that, like, you know, our bones move, but no, it's actually our bones stay in place. You know, they're pretty hard. But the muscle and the ligaments and the tendons that are attached to each other, that are attached to the bone, are what's allowing us to move. And so, like in the knee, there's the ACL, the MCL, and the LCL. So yeah. It also depends, or it also helps in digestion, breathing, and, like, you know, eliminating waste and in blood circulation. Because, like, you know, the heart contracts and everything like that, and the stomach contracts, our lungs contract. So, yeah. But anyway, so there's 3 main different types of muscular tissue. There's the skeletal, the cardiac, and the smooth. Skeletal muscles are consisted of like muscle fibers, and they're attached mostly to bones, skeletal bones, you can remember that, but also found in the tongue, lips, and the esophagus. It allows for body movements, but also facial expressions and, like, you know, nonverbal communication and in posture. So the cardiac, skeletal muscle, it kind of has I don't know if you can see it, but it kind of looks like this a little bit. And so yeah. And then cardiac muscles, which are a lot more darker with like space in betweens and stuff. Cardiac muscles are short cells, whereas like skeletal muscles are a little bit longer and fibrous. They are slightly branched. So yeah, you can tell a little bit more about that. And it's found in the heart, so cardiac found in heart. And it pumps the heart to create blood flow throughout our body. And then the last thing that we'll talk about is actually smooth. So the smooth, if you can see it right there, this is the smooth. And it looks a little bit like the skeletal, like, I mean, in a microscope it looks a lot more similar to it. But smooth muscle actually is also short cells, but they overlap each other. And they're found in the walls of like our blood vessels and in our digestive tract as well. It controls blood pressure and flow, and it contracts the stomach and expels feces and urine, or to help expel feces and urine from the kidneys. So okay, so that is the human tissues. Thank you very much for watching.